Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Okay, today we're going to take a look at the Glenburn record changer. I'm smiling because I've done this now 3 times. It seems very simple to say, but the idler wheel drive turntable, we're going to take it apart a little, just take the platter off. We're going to see exactly how an idler drive turntable works. So this is going to be the same method of power or propulsion that a dual record player uses, a changer, or even the Audiotronic schoolroom record player. And it's quite a common mechanism from back in the day. You know, some folks have told me that it's interesting now people think of an idler drive as a pretty good system, but apparently back in the day they were thought of as not the greatest, but it's interesting how perspectives change. I myself am agnostic to it, but I think it'll be interesting to kind of see exactly how it works. And I've seen these mechanisms before. It's completely a gear ratio thing. And I want to talk through my journey of learning, mostly due to the great information that you've shared with me about how I can or cannot change the pitch issues and speed issues I have with the Glenburn. Anyway, you're not going to want to miss this.
This is Record-ology.
So when we looked at this unit, when I took off the bottom panel, we didn't really get to see all of the innards because a lot of what goes on with this unit actually happens underneath the platter in the sub-platter area. So that's where our interest is going to be centered today, is underneath that platter. Also, in doing some research, I learned that the unit I have, of course, is going to be the cheaper. There's 3 variants of this model. The cheapest having the plastic platter. That's why some of you mentioned having one similar, but it had the metal platter with like the rubber mat. Apparently this is the entry level. I've spent quite a bit of time listening to this unit. I do like it a lot. The mechanics seem to function flawlessly, but the pitch, it's too fast. And a number of you have mentioned that's pretty common with these changers. There's a little metal ring. You don't want to lose this. First the metal ring came off, and then underneath was this rubber gasket. So we should be ready to lift off the platter. And again, yeah, it's just fast enough to be noticeable and annoying. So I would really love to fix this issue. All right. Before we look at that, let's look at the sub-platter. Plastic. Interesting. I thought this would be metal under here, but it's not. It's plastic. This is actually metal. It's got that gear there. But yeah, the sub-platter is completely plastic. That being said, it looks like it was made yesterday. And beautiful gray plastic. Can a gray plastic be beautiful? It doesn't look old and dingy. Let me just say that. But yeah, an interesting thing about this turntable is, unlike many, the spindle doesn't rotate. Like if you grab the spindle on a lot of record players, it rotates, but with the changers, it doesn't. It just stays put. So let's take a closer look. You know, the more I see of this turntable, I really think that it was professionally serviced not too long ago, because that tape there does not look original to me. I don't think that is 1972 or whatever. It looks like it's been serviced. That is really interesting. Really interesting. I mean, what we have here is a pretty simple thing. But what we're really focused on right here is going to be this, the idler wheel and the drive shaft there. So let's get a little bit closer shot. Having this off also affords me the opportunity to continue cleaning it, making sure I get all of the dust off that I wasn't able to reach before. Although it actually is a remarkably clean collection. I need a can of air. I really need a can of air. But let's look at the idler wheel itself and that drive shaft. So, yeah, there we go. So what we've got here is a rubber wheel. And this is not powered. This is sort of like a pinch roller. It's passive. It's pliable. You can stick your fingernail into it just a tad, so it's not too hard. You can use rubber renew if it gets too hard. I honestly think that somebody's hit this up with rubber renew already. So in this aspect, an idler drive turntable actually bears a lot of similarities to a cassette deck, because the motor is connected to this drive shaft right here, and we'll talk about its design here in a minute. But what's unique about this, and what's similar to a cassette mechanism, is that, as with a capstan that is powered, connected to the motor, either via direct drive mechanism or via a flywheel and a belt, this is what the motor is literally underneath this drive shaft right here. This idler wheel, it's an idle wheel, just like a pinch roller, has no power to it. All it does is bridge the gap, the connection from the drive shaft to the sub platter on the bottom of that platter we looked at a moment ago. And depending on whether or not it connects at this point, the middle point, or the top point, it will be geared in such a way that it will render either, this particular one has 4 positions. So one of those 4 speeds, 16, 33, 45, and 78. Right now we're in the 33 RPM mode. So if I engage start, what happens is it moves the wheel, the idler wheel, over to the segment of the drive shaft that is geared to provide 33 RPM. Now, if I want to go slower, it's going to move it up to the tiniest position right there, the tiniest part of that drive shaft. And that, due to the gear ratio of the drive shaft to the sub platter, ironically, the idler wheel itself, the diameter doesn't matter that much. So you can resurface these. You're changing the size and diameter of this doesn't make that big of a difference, as long as the drive shaft is in mechanical contact with the sub platter. But as you can see, as I change speeds, I'm going to 45 now, and then finally to 78, which goes down to the very, very bottom. You will notice that the speed changes on the wheel, therefore increasing the speed of the platter, and therefore the record and the pitch of the music is altered due to that. An interesting observation. It looks as though somebody has added some coiled wire. I don't know if that's original or not. I'm sure you guys know. Tell me in the comments. But to increase the diameter of that 78 RPM segment of this 4-position shaft. So increasing that would actually speed up the speed. So apparently, either by design, it was added to increase the speed, or perhaps the previous owner, who looks like they knew what they were doing, perhaps added that. And then when I go up to 45, there's nothing on there whatsoever. Now, my problem is the opposite. It's running too fast. I have not played 78 on this or 16. I've done 33 and 45, both of which are running fast. And typically, if a unit like this is running fast or slow, it's going to be proportionate. So all the speeds will be a little bit fast, which the 2 that I've checked so far are. So the only way to fix that is to decrease the diameter of this drive shaft. And that's something I'm not prepared to do. I'm not going to shave off metal from that. You can't fix that problem by shaving off, like I said before, the actual wheel, the rubber wheel itself. You have to do it with the drive shaft, which is an interesting thing. This is a good turntable in that when I hit stop, it pulls that idler wheel away from the motor pulley or the motor spindle. The reason why that's good is if it lives connected to it in a stationary position for too long, it can get a little dent in there, which is not a good thing. So it's a pretty simple thing. The motor speed cannot be changed like a DC motor, because this is an AC motor. You can't change the speed. You apparently can get a small change in pitch by adjusting the AC power supply, but I've also heard that really doesn't do anything. So really it comes down to adding diameter to the drive shaft segments if you want to slow it down, or no, to speed it up, or shaving some off to slow it down, which again, I'm not really prepared to do. An interesting look under the hood. I find this mechanism really fascinating. I'm not sure what everything is here, honestly. I've told you many times I'm an enthusiast, not an expert. You guys are the experts. So back here, it looks like we have some signal connectivity, and there is a piece of plastic here. I'm not sure. This is probably part of the camshaft mechanism, not 100% sure. And you've got these orange sort of foam rubber pieces here for suspension, probably of the motor, which is probably centered right about there and then geared to this position, I'm guessing, although not 100% sure. Anyway, a fascinating look at an interesting technology, the idler drive turntable, pretty popular in the 70s. Don't really see them new anymore, but that's because they're probably more expensive to build. They're built like a tank. This thing's working 44 years later. And although with some maintenance, it looks like, which is a good thing. It was loved, it was taken care of, it was maintained. And, it still exists all these years later for us to puzzle over and to marvel and admire. Okay, guys, and that's going to do it for today. I apologize for the no glasses. It kind of makes me look weird, but if I put them on, I start looking like something out of Alice in Wonderland because of the ring light. So that's why I do it this way. Anyway, every once in a while I want to do a little bit of FaceTime with you guys. I don't want to be completely behind the camera at all times. I want to have a personal touch to it because after all, we're having this show and tell experience together. I'm learning from you. Hopefully you're learning something from me, but mostly we're just hanging out and having fun. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up, share it out, tell your friends, and definitely subscribe if you haven't done so already. But that's going to do it for now, guys. Happy record hunting. We will see you tomorrow.